everybody? Welcome on back to Fantasy Football Futures. Today is Thursday, October 7th. I'm here with Tim, and I'm Tyler.
How's it going?
And today we're going to go over our must-starts, our sits, and our... Whoa, I did put sits and fades. Our starts, our fades, and our some sleeper picks that we think people who have potential of going off that might not be a 50-50 starter, not for you this week. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into some of the news here this week. I don't remember if we talked about Montgomery. It did come out officially. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. I know we touched on him getting injured on the last episode, but it's official. He's done 4 to 6, maybe 4 to 5, 4 to 6 weeks. So Damian Williams was the big pickup this week. Do you take anything with Montgomery being out? Do you think Williams does the job, or do you think this hurts the Bears' offense and maybe helps out a guy like Allen Robinson who's been struggling?
I think it hurts the Bears' offense. He's 31 years old. He's not Montgomery. He's had his time to start before. He doesn't really do well. That Bears offense is struggling, and they just named Justin Fields as the starting quarterback from here on out. Mm-hmm. So we should see. Mooney's the one that has more targets than Robinson with Justin Fields on the field. So should be interesting to see how much they pass the ball. Will they actually get Justin Fields and kind of let him loose, able to run the ball because he doesn't have Montgomery back there?
I'm interested to see, like you said, that was another thing that came out. Fields is the new starter. It took 4 games, kind of like we predicted. I know there was an injury, but I still think it would have happened either way. Something would have happened with Dalton. They wouldn't have been winning. He would have been in there. So that's big news coming out of camp. And you pick him up and stash him if you're in the Dynasty Keeper League, or what are you thinking here?
Yeah, Dynasty for sure. You never know what could happen, especially from here on out. The offense does not look good. He only scored 10 points last week.
Yeah.
So it's not someone I'm starting anytime soon. But for Dynasty, I'm definitely stashing him right now.
And he could easily become someone like Jalen Hurts was last year, filling. You see him use more of his legs than anything. Mm-hmm. So that was big news out of the Bears camp. The other news we have is Ridley's not playing this weekend, and Russell Gage. Ridley, due to some personal matter, so he's not going to London, and Russell Gage is out due to injury. And then Chris Carson tonight is out with a neck injury. That's something to keep an eye out for, because it's kind of been a long-term issue with him, which opens the door up for a guy like Alex Collins to take over as that lead back in Seattle, who I think the only thing you really lose, the running-wise, I don't think you lose a lot, but the biggest issue is catching the ball in the backfield. But I think they're going to go pick somebody up and be fine there. So that's big. And then one of the biggest questions I have here that came out this past week is Josh Gordon, who was reinstated for like the 18th time, is making his debut this week with the Chiefs. Are you buying the hype, or are you selling the hype with that?
I'm selling it. He's been good in the past. I'm not saying he'll get in trouble or get anything. When you're out of the league, you cannot practice game time speed. It's going to be a while for him to
adjust and be comfortable.
But then at the same time, he's in a great offense, a lot of weapons around him, so he might be able to sneak one in. But I'm not buying it. I just can't.
That's why I'm curious to see what's going to happen here. I do like Josh Gordon. We saw he could be what he could be when he was with Cleveland. He showed some spurts last year with Seattle and a couple of years with Seattle. To me, it's going to be interesting to see how Andy Reid includes him in this offense and what it's going to look like. I think anybody playing with Patrick Mahomes can be special. So, I'm not going to say go spend a bunch of money on him, but, shoot, right now, if he's available in your league and you can afford putting him on your bench right now, I'd say go put him on there. You never know what's going to happen. He could be really good with them. He could. It just really depends. So, to me, it's just, if I have the space, I'm going to pick him up and stash him just to see. Because you never know. Playing with Patrick Mahomes, I think, is a difference maker for him. Mm-hmm. And playing with Andy Reid, it's an offense that they're going to use to split up. So
I think, those deeper leagues, there is a point where you're having people that aren't even playing. Yeah. So I think he will get his shot. I don't think he'll do anything with it, but hey, you never know. I'd pick him up if those deeper leagues, those bigger leagues.
Okay, so that is all the news that around the league that I've heard of so far. Did I miss anything big?
Mixon missed.
He's
again.
out.
It looks like he's going to be out. I said Dalvin Cook didn't practice, but you read that
Dalvin Cook said he's not going to be 100% again this week, but he's going to play through it.
And then I think the biggest news is McCaffrey said he actually feeling really good. He actually was limited in practice.
He was in full pads and everything today, so I expect him to be back. Chuba Hubbard, nice fill for one game. Hopefully all those people who spent a bunch of fab dollars hopefully got Chuba Hubbard on our McCaffrey on your team, because I wouldn't doubt if this is the last time he goes down. So
sounds like it for now that I can think of.
So that is all the news that we've got around the league. So let's go ahead and slide into our starts, fades, and some sleepers for this weekend. I'll go ahead and jump right in with some of the starts that I have. Now we each came with two different lists. Didn't look. My number one start for this weekend, he's become a big pickup. I feel like a lot of people have talked about him. It's Dalton Schultz with the Cowboys against the Giants. This, to me, is a no-brainer. He's starting to separate himself as a Cowboys number one tight end. I know Jarwin's there and he's getting a lot of looks, but Dalton Schultz has really picked up his targets over the last few games. I think he has, 3 touchdowns over his last 2. And I only see that number going up. Dak really seems to like his tight ends, and they're playing a Giants team who has given up a touchdown in every game so far to the tight ends. And in 4 games, they've given up 24 receptions, 214 yards to the tight ends. So to me, I think this is lining up for a nice game for Schultz and Jarwin even as well. So I think if you have Schultz and you're debating to start him over a guy like maybe Mark Andrews, I think I'm starting Schultz.
Yeah, I love the Schultz play. I actually had Schultz as one of my top starts, and I'll go to my top start after this, who I replaced him with. But I think it's a great matchup. Like you said, the Giants will let up a touchdown every time. The only thing that matters or bothers me is the Cowboys look to be like the number one running offense right now. Pollard and Zeke, they're running the ball a lot. But at the same time, that Giants defense that up front, they can actually stop the run.
Yeah, they're a little bit better than what we saw.
I see Dak and the Cowboys passing a little bit more this week. And I think we forgot Mark Cooper was a little banged up today. And so it's going to be questionable to see what he's like. But if he's hurt at all, him or Lamb, Schultz is going to get fit right in. He'll have a great game, actually.
Yeah, so, he's my number one start this week.
So my number one start that replaced Schultz because of the news that happened today, I'm going with Kyle Pitts. You have your 2 wide receivers are out. That's Ridley and Gage. And so you're really only competing with Patterson, but Patterson's only been on the field for 30% of snaps. So then you have Mike Davis going to be running the ball, but I think Kyle Pitts is just going to be getting a ton of targets this week. Matt Ryan looked better last week, throwing the ball a little bit more. Now he has to find that number one, and Kyle Pitts is going to be the number one this week. Against the Jets, defense has actually not been that best against the pass. They're pretty good. They've been pretty good against the run. But the pass, people have been able to throw a little bit around him. I know Derrick Henry went for 150 yards, but he almost had 40 attempts. So that's bound to happen.
So, Kyle Pitts, I think, is a great play here. I think he hasn't found the end zone yet, and I think that's just a tick waiting to happen for him. I expect them to use him a lot, and I don't think the Jets cover tight ends very well at all. So I like Kyle Pitts this week. I think he's progressively growing more and more in that offense, and I think he's going to continue to grow, and I think we're going to start to see him utilized more in the red zone. But like you said, with 2 of their top receivers being out, Cordero Patterson might be a key for everybody this week after putting up 3 touchdowns. So I think this week is where you can see a big breakout game from Kyle Pitts. So
I said that wrong. Jets are actually good against the pass. They're not good against the run.
That's right.
But you have to pass the ball. Like, they have to throw it to someone, and Kyle Pitts is going to be that guy to pass to.
Yeah. So that's what, to me, I think I would take Kyle Pitts this week, take my chances with them. Rookies, you see, they take a while to develop. This is game 5 for him, so I think it's only going to get better as he goes.
And it's over in London, so who knows what's going to happen.
Weird games, yeah. So my second start this week is going to be a running back with James Robinson against the Titans. He's had 15-plus touches in his last 2 games. They're starting to run the ball a lot more, and I think you're starting to see James Robinson of last year because they're getting him the ball, and he's starting to get into a rhythm. He's had touchdowns over his last 2 games, and he's really just performing well for the Jaguars. And I think with everything with Urban Meyer being in the news and whatnot, I think the biggest thing that the Jaguars can do is just they continue to pound the rock to give Trevor Lawrence more confidence in that pass game. Titans' run defense is not good at all. I think it's like 26th or so.
They're around the low 20s, but they actually given up. It looks like 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns.
So I would see them to continue to trust his run game with James Robinson, and he's also a really good threat out of the backfield as well. So I think having him against a bad Tennessee defense, and it's just a way to get Trevor Lawrence more comfortable throughout the game so he's not thrown 40 times and thrown 3 picks like he did that first week. So I really trust James Robinson and this Jaguars offense to continue what they've been doing with him over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, really. So he has been on my fade list the past few weeks. Actually, not last week, and then the week before it was. But he's really coming around. I thought they were kind of going away from him, and when they weren't going to him, the Jaguars looked terrible.
Yeah.
So then now that they're going back to him, they're actually in games. They're competing. They're playing against. They should have beat the Bengals.
Yeah.
They're coming against a Titans defense that's not that good. They're giving up about 16 points average to running backs. But James Robinson is the only running back there, so when you can get 16 points out of him, without having to worry about.
I think he's going to have a touchdown, so I think it'll be perfectly fine. I think he easily touched that 20.
You said, he catches out of the backfield, so I think it's going to be a great game for James Robinson. My must start is actually going to be a quarterback. It is going to be Kirk Cousins. Had a bad week last week, coming off against the Browns. You thought that offense was looking great. They were looking good, and they were going to score some points. Only scored 1 touchdown. I think it was on the first drive to Jefferson. And so I think they're going to have a bounce-back week. They're against the Lions at home in Minnesota. So I think it's going to be a bounce-back week. The Lions are terrible against the pass. They're terrible against the run, not good against the pass. So I think it's just going to be a field day of Dalvin Cook's going to establish, or Madison's going to establish the run, and then Cousins going to be able to throw the ball over the field.
And so Cousins was actually going to be my third, but I inserted someone else. I kind of put Cousins as a sleeper this week because of how bad he was. I would say it was how bad he was. Cleveland's defense is underrated, and they're very good.
Yep.
So I think they were able to hold the Vikings in check, so Cousins didn't look as good. But I was reading about this, and in his 5 games against Detroit, he has 1,298 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, 1 INT. I don't see why that would change. I don't know if it's something with the Lions that just gets him going, or you can just read things better, or something, whatever it is. But I agree. I think he's going to continue to put up another top 10 performance like he has been the last 3 weeks before last week. Kirk Cousins, to me, is a no-brainer if you have him. Now, you're not going to start him over Mahomes or someone, but if I'm looking at Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins right now, I think I'm playing Kirk Cousins this week because of his known success against Detroit and how bad Detroit's pass defense is. So I agree 100%. He needs to be in that starting lineup, and he was going to be my sleeper because of maybe people are already like, oh, forget this guy after last week. So
yeah. I just think also the Vikings offense is better than the Raiders. And then the Raiders are also playing the Bears defense this week. So I think it's a great start. And I see him finishing in the top 7, top 5 for quarterbacks this week.
I 100%. I think if he won't fall out of the top 10 this week at all to me, unless for some reason they just can't stop Cook and Madison or whoever's running the football. So that's good. Number 2. My last one, I think after this week he's going to be a done. Putting in must start. He's just going to be an automatic slot. Some people still aren't as high on him as what they should be. That's Deontay Johnson with the Steelers. I know he got hurt that 1 week, but some people still aren't starting him in their lineups, which blows my mind. This guy is averaged over double-digit targets in every game this year. And he has 2 touchdowns in 3 games, and Big Ben's obvious favorite target. I don't care what they're going to do. He's looking at Deontay Najee, sprinkling Juju and Claypool throughout there as well. To me, I just think Deontay Johnson, this is going to be my last week putting him in here, is a must start every week, solely because Big Ben in that offense runs through Deontay Johnson. And when you get a guy who's averaging 13 targets a game, you can't get, like, he needs to be in your lineup no matter what. Mm-hmm. So, to me, he's my 3 must start, and it's going to be my last time putting him in this because he should be a must start every week. But I just know some, like, ESPN sleeper app was really low on him again, only expecting him to score 13 against Denver. To me, I think it's crazy. I think he's a 15 or more guy each week.
Yeah, he missed week 3, and he's still the number 22 wide receiver in PPR.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of wide receivers, so that's crazy just having 3 of the 4 weeks and still being better than most of those wide receivers. He's coming off, especially in PPR, you need to be starting this guy. Doesn't matter the defense they're playing. That offense is not good, but Big Ben is throwing him the ball a lot. So he's going to get a lot of catches. He might not be scoring as many touchdowns as you wish of all those targets, but it doesn't matter in PPR. All those catches will add up. He had 24 points last week, missed the week, and then had 20 and 15. Like, you're getting at least 15 from this guy just because how many catches he's getting. And then if you get a touchdown, you're in the 25 to 30 range for points.
Yeah, so to me, that's going to round out my starts then.
So my third one is I had him as a must start last week, and he was actually disappointing. But I think he's going to have a bounce back week because they're playing the Buccaneers. Buccaneers' run defense is super good, so they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. And I'm going with Jalen Waddle. Before last week, only had 4 targets, but before then, he was getting a bunch of targets. Had 13 the week before, 8 the week before that. And then I just think the Dolphins are going to have to catch up. They're going to have to throw the ball because they're not going to be able to run at all. And I believe this is where Jalen Waddle comes in and gets a lot of targets, a lot of catches.
Yeah, that's what I agree. And we've seen Buccaneers' pass defense isn't great. I think against the pass, they're in that 20 to 25 range. I'm pretty sure against the pass this year. So they're not great against the pass. I think if you're going to rely on somebody with Fuller going on the IR as well, I think it's going to go back to Jalen Waddle being the guy and getting as many targets as he can from Brissett. The one person that kind of on that team, speaking of the Dolphins, I'm curious to see what happens with Gaskin this week and how they utilize him. Because I think this is a big week for Gaskin. He's easily available on the fade list against the Bucs, but I'm interested to see. They're going to use Waddle a lot, like you said, and I think that's a no-brainer for them, and they should do that. So I'm just interested to see what they're going to do with Gaskin back there as well. I think this is going to be an important game to watch how the Dolphins, what they look like against a good Buccaneers team.
Malcolm Brown's not going to be able to do anything.
He can't do anything against the freaking Cowboys.
I expect Waddle to kind of have the game like Jacoby Myers had last week against the Bucs. He had 12 targets, 8 catches. Because they just had to throw the ball. They couldn't run
90 yards, so that's what
that kind of game.
I agree. So those are our starts. This week's fades here, I got 3 of them as well. My first one, I feel like you maybe have because I don't think you're playing him on your team. It's Clyde Edwards-Helaire against Buffalo. Buffalo has yet to give up a rushing touchdown to running backs. The highest they've allowed is 63 yards on the ground so far, and I think this is just a very tough matchup for Kansas City and their young offensive line against a really good Buffalo defense who's been really good against the run.
Yeah, he's my number 1 as well.
Yep. So
it's just that matchup. They played against Najee Harris week 1, stopped him. Yeah. And then they've just stopped every running back since then. Clyde's nothing special. He's not going to overpower them or anything like that. I believe if they're going to beat the Bills, it's probably going to be by the pass, even though their passing defense is pretty good as well. So I believe Clyde doesn't do anything this week, and I'm actually I have him on my team, and I'm sitting him this week. So
that, to me, he's the easy number 1. They're playing a really good rush defense. You can't take that risk this week with him. I mean, they could get him a goal line score or something, but I just don't see.
Goal line. It's Williams that's in there, so that's the tough thing.
So that's both our number 1s. My number 2 here is Miles Sanders, who is playing the Panthers. And I know the Panthers looked bad last week against the run against the Cowboys, but I think the Cowboys were just in such a groove offensively last week, it was hard to stop anybody. Miles Sanders has only had 9 carries over the last 2 games, and I think we're starting to see Kenneth Gainwell slowly increase that workload in Philly. So to me, it's worrisome to see what's happening with Miles Sanders. I know I think his carries are something. The first 2 games, he was averaging 4-point-something yards a carry, which is crazy. His missed tackles, he's right up there with the best of them. So I don't really know. He's my must-sit this week. Carolina's defense, I think, will bounce back. They'll have a better game. That was another thing we missed. Stephon Gilmore got traded to them, so that defense is only going to improve. But he's not going to be there till after this week. So I'm looking at him to not have another great game. I think Kenneth Gainwell might end up taking more roles this week than we would like. So to me, I'm going to fade Miles Sanders.
Yeah, I would fade Miles Sanders every week. I just don't understand. It's not 100% him. I just don't know what the Eagles are doing with him.
They're not running the ball like they usually do. They're like
in the red zone. Gainwell's on the field a lot more.
Yeah, they're like 28th in rushing offense this year.
I just don't know. So I 100% agree with that. My second sleeper is actually his teammate. I'm going with Devontae Smith. I really think Carolina's defense is very good, and Devontae Smith and just that pass and everything. Devontae Smith kind of had good week 1, but then when he plays a good passing defense, it's not totally him. Jalen Hurts just doesn't have it all there. Doesn't look like he knows what he's doing. And then they played Kansas City, whose defense is not that good, so he scored 20. He's playing at Carolina now. That defense is good. They've shown that they're good. I know they stopped the pass pretty much against the Cowboys because the Cowboys just ran all over them. So I think Devonta Smith is going to have a down week this week, and that's why he's one of my fades.
Yeah, that's why I could see it being a fade. To me, I just feel like they're developing him as their best receiver and playmaker. So they're going to try to get the ball in his hands. But we saw last week 2 weeks ago against the 49ers and against the Cowboys, he only put up 8 points combined both those weeks. So it's definitely possible they're going to put their best cornerback on him and try to shut him down. So I'm interested to see how he's going to look. I could see both ways, playing him or not playing him, just because of the matchup. So that's your second. My third is kind of a combo of 2, and there are 2 running backs for Denver Broncos. It's Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. With Teddy Bridgewater possibly not playing, I know he's in concussion protocol. I just don't trust Drew Lock, and I know they might try to run the ball more, but Pittsburgh's defense getting TJ Watt back is just the difference maker for me in this game. That run defense is with him in that lineup. They're just too good. You got to throw on the Steelers to try to compete and win games. And I think they're not going to be able to move the ball a whole lot with Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams. So this week I would sit both of them. Now I think later on in this, I think we're going to be talking a lot more about Javonte Williams throughout the season because he is. Missed tackles, he's number 1 per Pro Football Focus, doing their whatever algorithms that they use and everything and how they tally that up. He's the number 1 missed tackles on a run. So those are both going to be my fades for this week.
Yeah, honestly, if Drew Lock's at quarterback, I'm fine with you fading every Bronco there.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's a good quarterback. That Steelers defense with TJ Watt in there, I think is going to have have a lot of time in that backfield getting to Drew Lock, and I expect a few turnovers from him, so I can see that it's in Pittsburgh too, and so they're going for pretty much the West Coast all the way to the East Coast, so I can see that being a bad time for the Broncos.
Yeah, it's just their run defense is really good. The pass defense isn't great for Pittsburgh, so I think they're going to have to try to move the ball through the air.
Yep, so my third fade is going to be Odell Beckham. They're playing a Chargers defense who, coming in, the Raiders' offense was hot. Derek Carr was passing the ball a lot. But then came and played that Chargers defense, and they just shut him down. Chargers are giving up a lot on the run, but they actually stopped Jacobs a little bit last week, and Derek Carr couldn't do anything with the pass. And I believe Baker, he's kind of injured now, torn labrum on his non-throwing shoulder. He's going to be a little bit injured, and so they're just going to run the ball against the Chargers. And I just don't see Odell having a good game at all, and so I'm fading him as my third fade.
Yeah, and Odell kind of came out that he has a torn labrum, and he says no. Odell also came out and said that as well. He's been playing through it 3 years. He just doesn't want to get surgery on it and all this stuff I was reading today. So I know Baker came out and said that, but I think you're right. With Odell playing this Chargers defense, they're going to key on him because really that's who they have.
Yep.
I'm not a huge fan of Odell, never have been, probably never will be. But I agree. I think you fade him this week with the matchup they're playing. The Chargers are really good defensively and very sound pass rushing and everything. I think they're going to try to break them down by running Chubb, Hunt consistently. So I agree 100%. I would sit Odell this week. I would trade him if he's on my team because I hate Odell. But yeah, that's just a personal endeavor I have with him. But so that rounds out our fades then. Some of our sleepers. So my first one we've already talked about. It was Kirk Cousins, and that's solely because Detroit's defense isn't great. So that was my first sleeper. Who do you have here?
So my first sleeper is actually going to be one of the Jets players just came back. It's actually going to be Jamison Crowder. I think he's a great pickup. The Jets offense actually looked good against the Titans defense, who actually is not good at all. But Crowder only played 62% of snaps his first week back and got 9 targets with a touchdown. So they're playing against an Atlanta defense that's not good again. So then I think Crowder's probably going to be on the field just as much or even more. So I expect him to have the same target share, maybe even more since he's on the field more. And if he get a touchdown or two, he had 20 points last week. I expect him to hopefully have around that this week.
That's right. Yeah, I agree. He was going to be on this list for me. He's a slot guy New York has loved throughout the years.
Yep.
I don't see why it changes. I think this helps. I think having Crowder back is going to change the game for Zach Wilson personally. I think you're going to see him start to slowly progress more and more each week, and I think it's going to only help Corey Davis on the outside as well. I think having Crowder back is going to be a great boost for them. He showed last week that he's fully capable of coming back and being what he was last year, just a consistent slot guy getting 10 targets, catching balls 7-8 times a game, and just putting up some yards. So I like Jamison Crowder there as your number one sleeper. My number one sleeper is going to be with the Jags. I'm loving the Jags this week just because of the Titans. I don't think they beat the Titans, but I wouldn't put it past them because it is. I'm pretty sure it's at Jacksonville, isn't it?
Yes, it's at Jacksonville.
Yeah. So to me, I think it's going to be a good matchup for Shenault and Jones Jr. here. Shenault, they mentioned that he's already going to be working into a high role. They're going to look to get him the ball more. But I think Jones having a bad week, people are going to start to fade him and do whatever. I think he picks up where he was the first 3 weeks. So I wouldn't worry too much about Jones and Shenault. With Chark going out, I think that only helps both of them. And they're playing a Titans defense who's already given up 61 receptions, 944 yards in 4 games, and they've already allowed 8 touchdowns through the air. So I think that is a huge key component. With the balanced run game from Robinson, it's only going to help play action passing, opening up more chances for Shenault and Jones to have good weeks.
Yep, so actually that's my number 2. I have both of them.
Both of them?
Yeah, I did a combo. Because when Chark came out, you saw Shenault have a great game. He had 7 targets, was on the field 75%. And then Marvin Jones, I know he had a down week, but if they're going to be passing the ball a lot, if James Robinson can get that running game going, kind of let Trevor Lawrence pass the ball, give him a little bit of time, I think Marvin Jones deep down the field is going to open up those holes and be able to go deep. So I can see each of them scoring a touchdown this week against a bad Titans defense.
And that's definitely going to be my second sleeper kind of pick. People I think they're not going to always play these guys because they're on the Jags, but I think these guys are very good potential, put you 15 points plus a week. So those are both our number 2 sleepers. My third one is kind of a guy who's been gaining a lot of traction, but I still feel like people are hesitant to play him solely because of what team he plays on and who his quarterback is. That's going to be Marquise Brown versus the Colts this week. He's had a touchdown in 3 out of 4 games. He should have had touchdowns in 4 out of 4 games. He dropped 2 passes that were huge against the Lions week 3. So I think he's going to continue to do that. And the Colts have given up 43 receptions, 646 yards, and 8 touchdowns through the air as well this year. They played a bad Dolphins team last week. To me, I just think Marquise Brown is slowly growing into that 2019 Marquise Brown. And I saw a stat today, like Lamar has thrown the ball, his average distance of passes are like 8.3 or 8.9
It's like a
yards or
yard
more
than
than everybody else. So, to me, I think Marquise Brown is going to have another solid week, especially against a really bad Colts team. But to me, this is one game that I think could be a big upset alert with Colts beating Baltimore. But I expect Marquise to have a good week this week.
Yeah, I was down on Marquise. I thought after that performance, I was like, I'm done. This is what I expected.
Mm-hmm.
He had a great bounce back week, looking like the wide receiver number one, and Lamar really likes throwing him the ball. So I would definitely, if you have him on your team, I'd be starting him.
I know Bateman's coming back, but I wouldn't worry too much about that.
them yet. They're slowly going to have to be worked in. They're not going to just come in and get all that.
I'm not worried about it. Bateman will be. I think it'll only help Marquise.
Yeah, he'll be fine. So my third one is actually going to be more for deeper leagues. I don't expect if you're in a 10 team to start him this week, but I'm actually looking at Ricky Seals-Jones, tight end for the football team. We forgot about this. Logan Thomas is on the IR now. And so when Logan Thomas was off the field, because Logan Thomas was playing the whole time, Ricky Seals-Jones had 93% snap count, so he's on the field pretty much the whole game once Logan Thomas was out, and he had 4 targets. He's coming in next week. They're going to have the whole game to himself. I believe he'll be in that 90 to 95% again. Not maybe because you still have McLaurin, you still have Gibson, you have Samuel in there, so they'll get most of the targets. But if you're looking for a tight end, maybe to get a touchdown or two they're kind of trying to find, I think that's when Ricky Seals-Jones come in, just because he's on the field so much that there's a good opportunity he gets in that red zone.
I agree. I think with the pickup with Logan Thomas going out, it's a big pickup because, I mean, they don't throw the ball a lot to the tight ends, but they do utilize them a lot in the red zone. Mm-hmm. We saw Logan Thomas, he'd have like 6 targets a game, but a lot of his work and success was because he was catching touchdowns. I think he had a touchdown in 2 or 3 out of the 4 games, which is very good for tight ends, especially if you're looking for somebody just to kind of plug in and get you a touchdown and push you to that 10-point mark. I think he'll come in, he'll fill in nicely. Who is Washington playing this week?
They're playing... I just had it.
Saints.
Yeah, there you go.
So, the Saints aren't great against tight ends, so it's a solid sleeper pick, especially if you went and picked him up because you had Logan Thomas. That's a very good solid pick there because they do utilize tight ends. And right now their only weapon is Terry McLaurin, and we saw that was pretty evident against the Falcons. Just run around, throw the ball to Terry. So that's going to round out our sleepers then. And we'll just go ahead and move on to, you got any some gambling? And for Sunday, you got any prop bets for this weekend or that have really stuck out to you? Prop bets for me, I haven't been great with it lately. So
yeah, I was 1 for 1 last week. We both had, I think we had Brandon Cooks over 5.5. He had 5.
Yep.
And then we had Devontae Smith. Or was that 2 weeks ago?
No, that's 2 weeks ago, I think. Because I feel like I went 0-3 or 1-2 last week.
No, it was last week because Devontae Smith played the Chiefs, and that's why I really liked it. So he got the over on that one. So I'm really liking Kyle Pitts this week. And so I'm actually going to go with, where's it at? Kyle Pitts over 5.5 catches. I think he gets that 6-7 mark because he's just going to be throwing the ball so much.
And that's what I could see that. Kyle Pitts is definitely a great pickup this week, and I think to get over, it was 4.5 you said? I think
5.5.
5.5 with Ridley being out, I think that's an easy cover for him. With the Patriots and Texans here, we have Brandon Cooks at over 5.5. Do you think that's doable for him?
I think it's always a chance for him.
That's what I think. He's not playing as good of a team as last week. I think I would take that. Mm-hmm. I would take those odds. It's plus 110 right now on DraftKings, and that would be. I'm actually gonna put my arrow fast because I don't want that to change. I'm gonna take him at over 5.5 receptions this week again because I think it's always, like you said, it's always a possibility that it's gonna happen. So I'm going to hammer that one this week. Do you have any touchdown scores that you think are going to score?
So I have one prop bet, and then he's actually going to be my touchdown scorer. We already talked about him. I'm taking James Robinson over 83.5 rushing plus receiving yards. And I'm also going to take him to score touchdown this week.
That's why I don't hate that one at all. James Robinson, we've already talked about, has a very good chance of playing a not so great team in
The Titans.
So I think we're going to see a lot of usage of him. For me, I'm also going to look here with the Dolphins playing the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers have not been great against tight ends, so I'm going to go ahead and take Mike Gesicki, who's been getting a lot more involved in this offense at over 3.5 receptions as well. And I expect that to be very successful. Last week, I think he had 9 targets with 6 catches or something. So I like him this week, especially against a team who hasn't been great against the pass at all this year. So that for me, that's all I have for this week. Do you have any others that you're going to touch on this week?
Not right now. If I do, I'll be posting those prop bets on Instagram and Facebook and everything like that.
Okay, so go make sure you go check that out. We post that every week. We post some locks that don't always hit. For me, seems to be the opposite of whatever I do. So go check us out on everything. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever, and you want to watch a little clip of it, it's going to be on YouTube as well, just Fantasy Football Futures. If you guys subscribe, that would help us out tremendously. But we're going to try to put these out each week now. We're going to try to put some more out every day. They're going to be much shorter episodes. Like this one's only around 30 minutes, so we're going to try to keep it around that range each week, every day. So you guys are getting this pretty much the same content, just broken into smaller pieces. So that is it for our starts and our sits this week. Be on the lookout for, we're going to try to do something with a little pick'em thing. I know last week our video's been messing up, so we got to get that figured out first. But we'll get that going. So just be on the lookout for that and check us out on TikTok and everything. But we appreciate all the support, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Deuces.